We thank you, Lord, that it's a time of goodwill and peace on earth. We thank you, Father, that even for our people in armed services that can't be with their families, give those families peace and protect our armed people in armed forces. Lord, we pray a special prayer for Alex Alford and his family as they buried their father and even the others that have died around this Christmas season. We ask, Lord, that you bless each family here. We ask that you keep us safe on the roads and even in travel as our families come to see us. And we give and ask a special blessing as we make decisions that's in the best interest of the county. And these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We call this December 22nd meeting to order. First, I'd like to recognize we've got some special guests in the audience from Freeport, Mayor Barley, Councilwoman McLean, and City Clerk Madison. Thank you all for being here today, and we wish you certainly a Merry Christmas. Mr. Jones, first thing we have is additions and deletions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the consent agenda, we're asking you to make two additions. One is to approve the annual records management compliance statement and the approval of the Rackspace hosting term renewal agreement as requested by the TDC.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, next we have the agenda.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next we have the consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Public comments.
Okay. Do we have any public comments before we continue on with the meeting? Okay, seeing none. We've got Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, good morning. First item we're asking your consideration of is at the last meeting we discussed entering into an agreement with Maximus for a cost apportionment study of the BCC and the general fund. You asked us to do a little more study on that and bring it back to you. What we've found is in a couple of instances that it's very important that we do this study. One is for restore funding. It's going to be a requirement, and also for Section 8 funding in order to recapture those portions of the general fund that are expended in Section 8. We'll need to have this study as well. Further, that discussion was whether the TDC would pay for a portion of it. We're certainly comfortable with our general fund paying the total cost. Whether the TDC can pay for it or not, we think it's a good move that we move forward and be prepared to pay for it out of general funds, which we certainly believe we can recapture in short order once we're able to utilize it in these, especially the Section 8 and the restore numbers. So we recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Question?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to maybe consider amending this to approving the agreement or with the county paying the cost of it, not a split share.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion. Yeah.
Okay, we have an amended motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item for your consideration is a request to, with the staff recommends your approval of the interlocal agreement with the City of Freeport for the repay of the sewer loan. If you recall, some years back, the Board of County Commissioners entered into an agreement with the City of Freeport to provide funding on a loan basis for some expansion of the sewer system in an effort to alleviate some of the issues around the bay and to facilitate growth. The repayment schedule that was to be based on selling of sewer taps due to the recession and things that happened in the economy that did not move forward as anticipated. This agreement puts into place an alternative method of repayment. Mr. Sunday has worked very hard with the city to get us to this point. We think it's a good deal, one that does discount it some. It certainly seems to work in our best interest and in the best interest of the city. to move this forward and to get this behind us. So we would recommend your approval. You have the agreement there in front of you, and you could subject to any questions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. I'd like to make a comment. I know that over the past year or so, I've had discussions with Mayor Barley and Councilwoman McLean, and certainly with Mr. Madison, and they have been very, very forthcoming and helpful in getting this thing resolved. And it's my appreciation to them as well as to Mr. Sunday for the hard work that went into getting this agreement. And so my thank you to you. Any other comment?
I mirror your thoughts exactly. I know they've worked hard. You know, originally this was set up to try to get some sewage out of the bay. I still would like for us to work together as city and county to see that we still can accomplish that goal, maybe with some restore funds. Hopefully we'll get soon. But that's something that I would like for us to continue to work together with them on.
Mr. Chapman.
Again, I sat in on a couple of negotiations with Council Lady McLean and the mayor and the city attorney. They were very receptive to what we were trying to do, and I thank them for that. My question to them, I guess, would be, has this proposal been brought to your council for approval and signaturing and all that?
Yes, sir, and it's on our agenda for tomorrow night for approval.
Okay, thank you.
And I might add that pretty soon we'll be getting a restore coordinator, and I'd like to work, or someone from this commission with the city to write a project and maybe look into a regional approach to getting our bay up to speed again. So I used to, in fact, Sarah and I used to flounder in that bay together. So,
You tell me how we are.
so I'm really anxious to help the city of Freeport as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any comments from the public? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd forgotten that.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item, again, is regarding the City of Freeport and the request that you approve an interlocal agreement regarding the fire services for the city. For over a year, there's been discussion of how the county and the city could best work together to provide fire services at an acceptable rate for the city, and merge their fire department into the county department, hopefully saving them some money and making the whole operation more efficient for the residents of the city and of the county. Again, Mr. Sunday's worked diligently with the city to craft an agreement that was acceptable. We believe it's a good agreement. We believe it will strengthen our ability to serve the citizens throughout the county, including those within the city of Freeport. So we recommend your approval.
And Commissioners, before you move, we found a typo in the agreement that was attached to Granicus. It still had a strike-through in it, so we'll replace that without the strike-throughs, just so you know.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments?
Just there again, thanks for the hard work everybody put in. I think it's been a community effort, but we appreciate it and do feel it's going to be best for the citizens of Freeport as well as Walton County. So I'm excited about this.
I echo my comments of previously, and I think the partnerships that we're forging will do us well in the future, too. So, again, my thank you to the Freeport and to Stan and to the commissioners for getting this going. Any public comment? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The next item for your consideration, recently President Obama signed an executive order declaring Friday, December the 26th as a federal holiday. Soon thereafter, Governor Rick Scott signed a similar state executive order declaring December 26th as a state holiday. We're asking you to consider identifying, following their lead, the 26th as a county holiday for this year only.
What's the wishes of the board?
Well, my comments are, I got no grief with it in the fact that the bank's going to be closed. All these other governmental agencies are going to be closed. It's going to be very difficult for our staff that is working on Fridays probably to get much of anything done. So a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments?
I just think it's a goodwill, and our staff worked so hard. I just,
I know what it's like, being a teacher for 35 years, having that extra days, so I think they deserve it.
Any
Although
public,
it does cost us a lot of money.
Yes, it does.
any public comment? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, Commissioners, in your package, you'll find a letter of resignation from Mr. Mike Flint regarding his position on the Local Restore Act Committee. We're asking you to accept his resignation and extend our thanks and appreciation for his leadership and hard work that he's put into that for the going on 2 years that it's been in service. Mr. Flint currently fills the environmental slot. Ms. Pat O'Brien Murphy is currently filling the educator slot, but she is a science teacher and would love to fill the slot being vacated by Mr. Flint in the environmental side, which would allow this board to appoint a new committee member from the education field. There's no particular criteria on the environmental component, just that they must have some environmental experience, and we think that would help strengthen that board. So if you wish to take any action today, it would simply be to accept Mr. Flint's resignation and be prepared perhaps at the next meeting to nominate or fill the position with a individual into the science-related slot.
I will make a motion to accept his resignation with regret. I think Mike's served us very well. I hate to see him step down, but I certainly understand. Is there any criteria for the educational slot?
I don't think there's,
I didn't think so.
No, I think it was just very general that someone from the education field.
Okay.
They just need an application and a resume.
Yeah.
That my motion to accept Mike's resignation, say with regret, and if staff will write him a letter thanking him for his service. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
Okay, the motion is second. Any comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Commissioners, our next item is just to provide you some updates, and we'll show you some pictures of this is the progress in the EOC. As you can see, they're tearing things down and rebuilding things. The contract is for 90 days, and they're probably only 2 weeks into it. So we're anticipating first to the middle of March. There are a couple of things there that may slow it down just a little bit as far as ordering and getting some particular components. But we're making good progress on it. It will certainly be up and running prior to hurricane season, and we're looking forward to that. So
Hurricane season?
of next year. Next item I wanted to update you on is the Mossy Industrial Park. This is the road that extends the current service road by Love's to the east. Very proud of our staff and what they've got done here in a very short period of time on getting this road completed. That was an important component of the big project we're working on out there. So when we told them we needed it done, they jumped on it and got it done. You can see the hotel construction is well underway. We anticipate it opening somewhere mid to late summer. The last item is the replacement of the Woodlawn Fire Station on US 331. The building is pretty well dried in. We anticipate our crews getting in there in the next week to 10 days, 2 weeks, probably completed mid-February, mid-late February. In the interim, we'll be moving the Woodlawn Station into town, serving the northern part of 331, and with the agreement just passed, we'll have the ability to serve the southern part of 331 outside of Freeport from the Freeport Department as well. So that agreement already has benefits.
I have a question about Mossy Head. Being a new commissioner, do we have anything like an aerial plan of kind of where the property is and kind of a plan of we're going to try to get this much money for this, and we kind of want this business to go in? I mean, just a project plan, and we might have that. I was just wondering.
We've got a map that shows what's happened so far, and we can get you a copy of that.
Okay, sounds great. Thank
Okay.
you.
So no action required there. Just want to give you an update of where those things were and how they were happening.
Thank you.
Next item under Public Works, a If you recall, at the last meeting, you agreed to move the proposed tennis courts from Helen McCall Park. The first item we're asking you is to cancel the bids on invitation to bid 15005 for the Helen McCall tennis courts. So the proposed motion would be to cancel invitation to bid 015005 for the Helen McCall tennis courts.
Motion to cancel.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Any public comment? Seeing none, motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, along with that, is permission to advertise for bids for the construction of 4 post-tension concrete tennis courts, 2 60-foot by 120 feet and 2 under 10, 36 by 60, and include a basketball court and associated side work to be located at Legion Park. Again, this is a result of canceling that bid and moving this project to Legion Park, so we would like to begin advertising that for bids.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Any public comment? Seeing none, motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, Commissioners, we're requesting you to approve task order 14013 with Atkins North America for the professional engineering services for the resurfacing and reconstruction of County Road 285 in the amount not to exceed $199,900. At the November 12th, 2014 board meeting, you approved the revised 2015 Small County Road Assistance or Scrap Agreement and resolution for the resurfacing and reconstruction of this road, County Road 285 from State Road 187 to the Alabama line. The project is being funded by scrap funds in the amount of $1.465 million. Approving this will allow us to continue moving this project forward.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioners, before you vote, because of some problems with projects less than $200,000 and $2 million in another county involving the school district, I checked with Public Works just to ensure that this is a complete project. It's not a project that's being divided to keep it under the limits. So we just want to make sure that was clear for you.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comment? Any public comment? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is regarding a contract with the Florida Department of Corrections and a work squad agreement, number 959 for our Parks Department. We're asking you to renew this agreement for a 3-year term, and this is a 3-year renewal, so it's an existing agreement for the inmate work squad that works for our Parks Department. Same terms and conditions, so we're asking you to approve it so we can continue utilizing that service.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment? Any public comment? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is regarding an invitation to bid 015-003 for a chain link fence project for Helen McCall Park. We're asking to re-advertise that as our initial bid. We only had one respondent who was not responsive, and they submitted their bid late. So we're requesting to re-advertise and rebid this project.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The updates we have, on Friday we received the DEP permit, or actually the Corps of Engineers received the DEP permit for the Hurricane Storm Damage Reduction Project, and we'll be coming by to brief each of you on that because there's some options going forward we're going to ask you to consider on January the 13th. We've also completed the Legion Park boat ramp. Invite you to go down there. We'll have a ribbon cutting at some time. And the Dothan Avenue walkover is complete before the holidays, so we're very proud of that. In the last 4 weeks, we've received numerous awards for the destination. Travel and Leisure identified Santa Rosa Beach as one of America's favorite towns for 2014, and America's Best Town for the Holidays, one of America's best towns for the holidays. Watercolor Inn and Resorts received the Condé Nast Travel Readers' Choice Awards as one of the best resorts in the Florida on the Gulf and Central side, and the 2014 CNN designated. Rosemary Beach is one of the best, or is one of the most romantic small towns, and the best hotel in Florida by Condé Nast Travel Readers was the Pearl in Rosemary Beach. So, good summer. Subject to any questions or any issues.
How did our holiday bookings look for Thanksgiving and the upcoming Christmas?
We're still strong. For Thanksgiving, we were strong. I haven't talked to anybody about Christmas, so I don't know. We'll get the November numbers in about a week and a half, and they should be good, but I don't have any information on December yet, Mr. Chairman. Merry Christmas. Happy New
I
Year.
have one
Yes,
thing.
ma'am.
Just clarification, on the upcoming special meeting we're having on beach vendors, will that be only questions or will that be public comments? How are you going to, what's your plans to run that meeting?
Well, it's a BCC workshop, so we're going to run it like y'all tell us to. But if it follows the format of the Hurricane Storm Damage Reduction BCC workshop, we'll take questions. We'll answer all the questions. We'll have 5 by 8 cards. We'll get questions from the commissioners and from the public prior to the meeting, and we'll answer those up front. And then as questions are generated from those answers, people will submit 5 by 8 cards, and we'll just answer the questions. I don't
And
know
then
if
there'll
any
be a time for some comments too,
Well,
accommodation or?
commissioner. That's
What we're trying to do with the beach renourishment one is the fact that by letting everybody continue to fill out cards, we prevented the duplication of just a comment, the same thing over and over, but made sure that everybody's question was answered. And even if they had one that developed during the period of time, they were able to submit a card with a specific question so that either the Army Corps or DEP or TDC could get the answers to them. And that way, it wasn't just the same thing being regurgitated over and over with public comments. We stuck specifically with the issues on that.
And then will we have 2 meetings? Will we have 1 questions? And then, what's the legal? I'm just trying to get an idea because it's going to come so fast after the holidays.
Just the workshop. So we're trying to make sure that everybody's question that comes out of this is answered. And we'll take it, we'll provide, again, probably a 2-hour time frame. Last one went an hour and a half. Provide a 2-hour time frame, and if we get our questions in first and the public's got some questions first, we can get those answered right off the bat. And then all those that come in, when they come in, they can submit it. They don't have to put their name on it, but the questions can come in. They can get answered by the person that's appropriate. And if we've got some questions that can't get answered, we'll expect a response. Research it, come back and give responses to the board. But since it's just a workshop, we're trying to get it in a question and answer format so that, again, it's not just a series of the same thing being said over and over, because some people like to do that.
Legally speaking, the ordinance, the statute only requires a public hearing. Anything you do in addition to that takes public comment, it certainly goes beyond compliance with the ordinance. But there just has to be an opportunity for public comment at or near the time of the decision making.
And that'll be afforded to people when this is brought back at a board meeting to be considered. So it's not like we're taking anybody's right to talk away. We're just trying to get the questions answered, and then when the item comes before the board at that point in time.
Right, so from the questions, we might even generate changes to the ordinance
Sure.
and then comes before us
Absolutely.
for vote.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioners, before Mr. Bagby sits down, I'm sitting on my school board hat just briefly. I wanted to thank him publicly for the TDC's donation to that Hilton Sandestin basketball tournament at Freeport. It's 2016 plus 8. I got a call. 24 teams, and
Right.
many of them almost all of them are staying at the Sandestin Beach Hilton. It
Right.
raises a lot of money, but it was a generous donation, and we certainly appreciate it.
How many years has that been going on?
This is year number 20.
Wow, it's hard to believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And if any of y'all would like any tickets to those basketball games, we, as part of our sponsorship, we get them and make them available to the commissioners and staff. So,
Thank you, Mr. Bagby.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, if I may just make sure a point of clarification, the workshop will not serve as the public hearing for the ordinance or the amendments to the ordinance.
That's
That will be at a
correct.
separate date and time.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Mr. Davis.
Commissioners, I only have one item. It is a request to approve an engagement agreement with the Warner Law Firm to advise and represent the board with respect to 2 counts, counts 9 and 10, contained in the 7th amended complaint in the matter of Abbott versus Olson Associates in Walton County, case number It's now 3-14-CV-646. It's the federal court case number. The Florida Association of Counties Trust has agreed to pay the Warners to cover one count, and then there's two counts that they would not cover. So we're asking you to approve a contract with the Warners to represent Walton County on those two counts as well, so we don't have a split representation.
Can I vote on this?
I wouldn't probably. Yeah.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Yeah. And Commissioner Commander is also a defendant in this case individually. So.
And Ms. Wilkins, we note that Commissioner Commander has abstained on this. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments?
Just that, after this is over, when, whatever the verdict is, if they happen to lose, I think we need to try to recoup the money that, because some of these lawsuits really get out there, and I just think we need to make a statement. We're going to come after those people that are suing frivolously.
Commissioner, in every case, we make every attempt to recoup every attorney fee, but we'll
Right.
certainly take a look at it and make sure.
Mark, I know you and I probably had this discussion, but
Yes, ma'am.
this is the seventh amended complaint. There's got to be a point in time somewhere that a court says that's enough, because it seems like every time he gets ruled against him, he changes his complaint.
Commissioner, just as a matter of general knowledge, one of the frustrating things we attorneys, especially on the defense side, have in Florida is Florida has a constitutional provision guaranteeing access to courts. And the Florida Supreme Court and the various appellate courts have ruled over and over and over again, to our dismay, that just kicking a case on a motion to dismiss early in the case is not favored and rarely happens. So that's why you'll see cases in Florida with 4, 5, 6, 7 amended complaints, because we'll file motions to dismiss and they'll fix their complaint, and then we'll go back and forth. So just so you know, that's why that happens. It is unfortunate, in my estimation. That's not true in other states, and I will tell you it's certainly not true in the federal system. You don't get very many cracks at the ball in the federal system, but that's why you will see that. And one of the things we try to do is avoid that by many times just answering the complaint and seeking motions for summary judgment, which are hard to get, but not as impossible as a straight-out dismissal.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public?
Yeah.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And Commissioners, I don't necessarily need a vote, but I need your permission to go ahead and advertise for a publication to set a public hearing on an ordinance regarding Empire, and we're going to do that on January 27th, 2015. And all I need you to do is say, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead.
And that's the tax exemption for Empire.
Go ahead.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jones, we got a public hearing?
Yes, sir. Regarding the resolution to elect to use the uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem special assessments levied within the unincorporated area of Walton County. This is an annual requirement that to facilitate moving forward our current MSBUs, and if we wish to establish any new MSBUs, this resolution has to be passed prior to the end of this calendar year.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Do we have any comments from the public on this? Seeing none, what's the wishes of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comment? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay. Commissioner Commander.
I have nothing other than to say, may God bless
Okay.
each and every one of you and your families, and may you have a blessed and joyous holiday.
Commissioner Jones.
Merry Christmas to everyone, and Happy New Year.
Commissioner Chapman.
Merry Christmas to everyone. Appreciate the work of staff over the last year, and have a safe holiday season. Thank you.
Commissioners, I'd like to make a special recognition, if I could, for just a moment, to Wanda Quimby. This is her last board meeting after many, many years of service to the county, both in the Sheriff's Department and in the Finance Division. Thank you very much for the many years of service. Thank you for all the things you've done for not only the county and for the board, but for the staff out there as well. We're going to miss you. We hope you don't stay a stranger, but Godspeed with everything that you do. Enjoy all the cruises that you have lined up with your husband. So very best to you. And to everyone out there and to the board and the staff, a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and we'll look forward to a very productive 2015. Okay. Any comments from the public? Please state your name and spell your last name for the record, please. Please direct any comments you have to the board, and we're not here to attack any members of the board or the public.
Okay, that wasn't my plan, so you're
Okay.
good. Tammy Reinhardt, Tamireinerhart. And I'm ready to celebrate Christmas too, so I'll be quick. Basically, most of you know I'm trying to get my lifeguard certification so I can get a vending permit, and I've been trying to do that since August. There are no classes. There have been no classes within 200 miles. I'm sure there will be in spring, but there are none currently scheduled. Obviously, this is a big deal to me. I've spent a lot of money to get into business, and I can't do business. So I'm just here to appeal to you guys. Take a look at it, find a solution, find a class, find an instructor, solve the problem. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, will you look into that, please, and see if
Glad to.
we can help?
Be more than happy to.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Boys and Girls Club used to teach.
Again, please state your name and spell your last one for the record.
David Watson, W-A-T-S-O-N. Maybe I'm a little confused, but the non-ad valorem requirement you asked for, were we supposed to get some info as to what that was needed for?
It's a general provision that statutes require that a local governing body pass a resolution prior to the end of this calendar year to implement MSBU's in the coming calendar year. It doesn't set any up. It doesn't start any. It's just part of the process that allows this board, if they choose to in the coming year, to start a new MSBU. There's none planned other than the ones we already have in place, and each of those will have their individual hearings at the appropriate time in the next year. But absent the board taking this action today, they forfeit their ability to create a new MSBU in the coming year if they so choose to. We don't have any in mind or plan that I'm aware of, but it's just something we do on an annual basis to make sure we have that ability.
Does it give the board the ability to recoup any expenses involved with finding out if there's going to be any MSBUs or anything like that? Like looking ahead, do you get administrative costs from the property appraiser's office or anybody for doing anything toward
Typically,
that end?
in the past, and it's certainly at this board's pleasure how they would move forward, if there was a request for a new MSBU, the way it has been handled in the past is that the board would typically fund those upfront costs, which are typically not, not to minimize a few $1,000s, but it's not an extravagant amount of money. And if it does not pass or does not move forward, that's the cost the board incurs. If it moves forward, there is a mechanism in those individual taxing districts to recoup those administrative costs.
Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Any other comments? Mr. Dice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a few items. We'll be very brief as well. The first item is to request to enter into negotiations with Tetra Tech for emergency planning and disaster recovery and HMPG services, basically grant writing, and we're asking for approval for us to enter negotiations with Tetra Tech on that item.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is dealing with Moss Head Industrial Park covenants and restrictions. We're requesting the ability to work with Empire on the siding and the landscaping of their facility in conjunction with the covenants and restrictions.
And just to brief you on, if you recall, when Love's was in their development stage, there were some of the landscaping requirements that they asked for some relief on from. At that time, you gave staff the ability to negotiate those and come up with a landscaping plan that certainly met our intent, and just to approve that at staff level. And that's our request, is that if you would allow us to work with the Empire folks in their development to kind of customize their landscaping. They were concerned about some trees and issues that are required in the covenants restrictions. They certainly want their facility to look nice, as we do, but if you'll give us the ability, we'll work with them to craft a customized landscaping scheme for their particular project.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, the next two items are quasi-judicial.
Anyone who anticipates testifying on any matter before the board, the quasi-judicial matter, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Anyone have any objections to any of the notices published for the quasi-judicial hearings? And Commissioners, have you had any ex parte contacts regarding any of the quasi-judicial hearings?
Question on that. Since I understand one of these is going to be deferred,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
and most of us would have had ex parte on it, do we need to submit that on that would be deferred?
We can do that at the time of the hearing, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the first matter, as you mentioned, is Watercolor Town Center Homes. We have a request from staff to continue to the February 10th meeting. This will give them time they have a few issues they need to work out, the applicants do. It'll give them time to do that and also to advertise and so forth. So again, we're requesting this be continued to the February 10th meeting.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any other comment? Any public comment? Since it's quasi-judicial, do we need to do anything other than just the deferral through the board? Do we need to have any other thing with regards to this, since it's quasi-judicial, but we're just moving the date of the board? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, last item is number 2 on your agenda, Dell Peterson Small Scale Amendment 14-009. I'll ask Brian Underwood, Senior Planner, to come up and give you a brief overview of this application.
Good morning, Brian Underwood, Planning and Development Services. I'm presenting a small-scale amendment number 14-009. Dale E. Peterson is the applicant. This is a current land use category of residential preservation on the subject property. They are recommending or requesting an amendment to neighborhood commercial. This amendment affects 4 existing platted lots in the Eastern Lakes subdivision. It includes a total of 0.688 acres in 2 parcels. The proposed amendment of the adopted future land use map from residential preservation to neighborhood commercial is considered consistent with the Walton County Comprehensive Plan and is not considered consistent with the Walton County Land Development Code. The Planning Commission public hearing was held on October 9th. The Planning Commission recommended approval for the western 2 lots only that are subject to the proposed amendment. That is including a total of 0.344 acres on lots 13 and 14, parcel ID 19-3S-18-16010-00D-0130. There's language in the Land Development Code in Section 2.01.03 that states no new commercial or workplace uses shall be established within a 250-foot buffer around areas which meet the definition of residential preservation areas. We believe that the eastern 2 lots are currently undeveloped, and they do abut areas with the residential preservation category. The 2 western lots that are proposed within this amendment are currently operating as a commercial entity, which is considered a legal nonconformity. As they are existing, they're not subject to the provisions of this Land Development Code section. We have received 1 public comment, faxed correspondence dated August 13th of 2014 from Deborah Hilton. She was opposed to the proposed amendment. And at this time, I would make a motion to recommend approval or denial of the proposed land use amendment.
Is the applicant here?
Mr. Cliff Nauer is here.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cliff Nauer, K-N-A-U-E-R. This project is sitting on an area that's been commercial for probably 25 years, since the early 80s, and the applicant originally wanted to change the land use for all 4 lots. When we found out there was an issue with the land development code on the 2 lots that are on the eastern side, that withdrew their request to change the land use on all 4. The only 2 that they're asking to change the land use on are the 2 that have been commercial for 20-plus years. The concern is that if the building burns down or is washed away for some reason, they'd have to replace it with a house. And so it's been commercial for well over 20 years. So they're only requesting for the 2 that are in compliance with the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan both, which is what the Planning Commission approved.
What's there now?
Real estate office, yep. It's been on and off all sorts of different real estate offices for since the 80s. Yep.
Motion to approve?
Okay, but first, is there anyone in opposition that wishes to speak? Okay. Any public testimony to come? Okay. Now the wishes of the board, please.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Wayne?
That's all we have.
Thank you.
Before you, if you would, and forgive me for not mentioning this at the beginning of the meeting, but obviously Commissioner Meadows was not here today. She had a limited opportunity to visit with some family, so she's out of town taking advantage of that. So we want to certainly wish her a Merry Christmas. But before we go, I just want to say to Commissioners, on behalf of myself and our staff, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thank you for your support over the past year. We look forward to a great 2015, working closely to get some good things done. So thank all of you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.